Welcome on the water, I'd say. It's relatively early in the morning, it's a beautiful day, spring, April. We have zero wind, we have a beautiful sun. There's only one thing missing, and that's a nice cup of coffee to enjoy this morning sun. But I'm sure we'll have that later, but before we do that, let's go through this great Sea Ray Sundancer 320. And as you can see, I'm sitting here in the bow, which I personally think is one of the major interesting features of this Sea Ray. We internally call this sort of a crossover because we've been used to sports cruisers in this caliber, in this length, having like a flat deck on the bow over which you walk if you want to do the fenders and the lines. But this has a nice setup with 3 seats that can carry 3 adults and maybe even 4 children. If you flip up these armrests, I'm sure there could be 4 kids here. And this actually is a great place to do some lounging. I really like this Sea Ray table with the Sea Ray logo on top. There are speakers here. There's cup holders, there's really good, let me take away my phone, there's really good arm rests. And as we're used to with Sea Ray, the ergonomics are perfect. And this is just, even with my length, a perfect setup. Even this angled knee rest, I would say, makes this really comfortable. But not only that, it also has a practical / safety approach to it. Because of this elevated piece, you're more or less blocked in the seat when driving, so you wouldn't slide out when somebody would take a turn or something. So again, a beautiful bow area. And of course people then think that there's a sacrifice below in the cabin, which of course I'll show you later, and I will prove that that is not really the case. Of course it's lower than maybe on other boats, but still it's big enough for even tall people like me. So again, speakers and a nice table, so really practical. And of course also a nice railing. I always with Sea Ray like the way that they do the weldings. It's the details that count, of course, and it's always Sea Ray use the best materials possible, so stainless steel of a 316 quality. And this is very practical to stow away in the fenders. There's a hatch here which opens up. There's an anchor winch here, electric anchor winch with a beautiful stainless steel anchor on the bow with a proper bow roller. All these details show that there's lots of experience and attention to detail with all the people that work for Sea Ray. This boat has the infinity flooring, which is an option that I personally really like because it's modern, it's very practical, you can rinse it off easily. It's nice to walk here with bare feet in the summertime. So a great setup, but there's different possibilities. You can have sea deck, which is on the aft, which I'll show you in a minute. And you could have full teak, like the table here, which gives it a very warm look and is also very convenient. There's courtesy lights throughout the cockpit, also in the bow. And of course there's a possibility to protect this from the elements. Let's not forget the headrests. By the way, they can even be popped up like this. I really like the stitching and the attention to detail, and again, nice armrest, so really nice. So let's carry on while starting at the bathing platform, which by the way is huge. This really is a great bathing platform with also this nice place to sit. This particular boat has the optional submersible swim platform, something that I'd really like when you have kids like I do. When you're out on the water anchoring and the kids want to swim, it's so nice to just drop this down in the water slightly. Then they usually use it as a, well, as a platform to jump off from, but also to get on board again. So really practical. If you'd like to do some wakeboarding, it's quite a big boat to do wakeboarding, but I'm sure it's possible, and you have really great waves, especially with the nice system, which I'll come back to later, where you can move or use the trim tabs and the outboards in a way that you make the perfect wave. But it's always quite cumbersome to put a wakeboard on and off, as some of you may know. But with this platform, which you can slightly put in the water, that makes it a lot easier. And of course, here the attention to detail, huge cleats with the Sea Ray logo engraved. What I always like, and other practical features like this, for example, a central place to store the shore power cable. There's the main switches, so when you come on board, this is the only place where you need to put on the battery switches, the main switches, so that you have power throughout the boat. I really love this great storage area. As you can see, we've got all the cushions. There's cushions from below and other stuff we needed for this video, but it's huge. You can store your fenders, your lines, the filler piece for the table, which is there. So you can make a huge sun lounge there, not only by doing this, which I truly like, especially when you're out on the water and there's friends also who are anchoring, so you're moored up next to friends, and imagine your friends being there and enjoying the sun and the company of really good friends or family on the boat next to you. This, I think, is a great setup. And again, you can lower that table. The filler piece was below here, so that also converts to a huge sun lounge. So you can enjoy the sun or take the sunshade out, which comes out all the way to approximately here. So you can be protected from the sun when it's a really hot sunny day. And again, this is the sea deck, which is now on the bathing platform. Really practical material, easy to clean. I think personally, of course, it's a matter of taste, but it's good looking. This is in the gray color, but you can also have it in a brownish color. This boat having the ivory upholstery, which is white with some nice dark brown accents. But you could have a stone upholstery, which is a light gray, matches perfectly with the gray sea deck, or a dune upholstery, which is brown. And with the brown, I also like that setup, especially with the teak table. And then I'd have the sea deck in the brownish color. So there's multiple options with regards to the interior. And of course, that is also on the bow, by the way, there's a second remote control for the Fusion stereo. A third, I should say, because there's one, of course, at the helm, one in the bow and one here on the aft. There's a shower here, so you can rinse off when you took a swim, which is really nice. This door here also can be closed like this, giving you extra safety when you bring your dog, for example, or small kids, that they don't fall off that easily. The controls here for the submersible swim platform. And of course here also the nice stitching. What I always like is this slightly elevated piece, because when you sit here it just makes you feel more comfortable and also protected, that you don't slide off the cushions while driving. There's places always on a Sea Ray to grab onto, which can be really convenient in rough seas. A nice teak table, again, can be lowered. A nice galley area here to rinse something off. And you can have a grill here that has not been fitted on this particular boat, depending on the country you use it in. In Holland, we don't use this with an electric grill so often, because you either need shore power or a generator to use that. So we sometimes fit something else here. You could also use it as a storage area if you'd like to. There's less and less people that actually do a lot of cooking on board, and some people just bring their barbecue, the Cobb barbecue I personally like a lot. Really convenient, compact, doesn't heat on the outside, so you could even put it on the table. So there's different solutions if you want to make a nice meal with friends. There's a stainless steel refrigerator, which I truly like. Nice slide out. Trash can. Proper steps on to get on or off the boat. This is the controls for the sunshade. A nice small seat here, but also the space underneath has been used for storage. That is the same for this area. All these storage areas have been used properly. And I also like this swivel seat here on the port side, so you can do some lounging facing aft. Imagine having a big group of friends. When you put the backrest in the position that it's supposed to be while driving, you could have a full group of people here and have a really nice time with family and friends. Speakers, of course, and here you also see the infinity flooring. I like this optional opening roof. This is in the closed position, but in Holland we don't always have the nice sunshine, so when we do, we really like to feel the warmth of the sun, especially in spring. So on a day like today, I would certainly have this open and feel the warm rays of the sun. Cup holders again, there's 3 of them. There's 2 more there, there's 3 there, so plenty of place to store your drinks. And this of course can also tilt back so that while driving you sit here nice and comfortably. There's dedicated storage for the bow table, optionally in teak, but a really nice place to store it. And I also like the attention to detail here with all this upholstery. And again, ergonomics with the grab rail in the perfect spot with an armrest. It's really good. The steering bench, I would call it, can be, you can slide it forward and aft like this. Really comfortable. There's flip-up bolsters. I really like driving in this position. You could use the footrest here and push yourself into the seat more or less so that you're protected. A tilting steering wheel. So again here also really nice ergonomics. Love the joystick steering, by the way. Not only for the ease of use, but also since there's added features like the autopilot, really practical. If you're alone, you want to prepare mooring lines, fenders while going to a lock, for example, you just press the autopilot and you prepare everything. And also the kayak feature is really nice, where you just press a button and the boat stays on exactly that position using GPS, and of course the engines locking the boat in place more or less with a slight margin of a few meters, of course. But the system, I know from experience, works perfectly. There's a bow thruster also, can be really convenient. A proper fusion stereo with a nice display here. Cup holders again. There's a nice visor which more or less protects the 2 screens here from the sun, which is not really necessary because they're really bright. Tinted windows. And of course there's a possibility to have a full enclosure here with a what we call a camper canvas package. So you could have canvas here all the way around the cockpit and also on the aft. So you could also use this as a nice social area in less good conditions while still being protected from the elements. Okay, let me just think if I'm forgetting anything. Well, of course, I really appreciate also the walkthrough. As I mentioned, we've been used to sports cruisers with an elevated deck, where if you would want to go forward, there usually would be an opening somewhere here in the middle, and you would go on here and walk to the bow, which is okay. But walking on a deck without being able to quickly grab the railings, etc., is just a lot less easy and a lot less safe, I would say, than this walkthrough. And it's so easy, safe, you're protected. Look how high this is. You just don't fall off, and it's just so convenient to quickly go through the bow and grab a line or anything. So a really convenient walkthrough. And this is the way to get into the cabin area. So again, like I mentioned before, you think with the bow area being slightly lower than usual, there'd be a huge sacrifice down below here. But I'm 1.93 meters, and just look how really comfortable I can sit here without feeling cramped or anything. They do open with small portholes, but the huge windows on the bow also give you direct light from the outside, which makes this a really nice place to stay. Comfortable seats, inclined backrests. I just really like the whole setup. Also this upholstery here, and of course there's curtains, so you could sleep here. If you do like this and you lower the table, there's a filler piece again, so two people could easily sleep here. There's a nice television here. So a great bow area. There's a second fridge below here. There's a small microwave. Some things are optional. But there's lots of cooling possibilities, so you can carry all the drinks you'd need. All the storage has been used, so plenty of place to store your things. A proper head on this side, also with a shower, so really convenient. And on the back, I won't invite the cameraman, but there's an extra cabin with two beds, which can be either separated so that you can have two guests, for example, in the area there, or you put them together. There's an extra filler piece, so you have a huge double bed also below the cockpit. Also really nice. There's good ventilation, there's curtains for privacy reasons, so a really nice setup also down below. So let's go out and take her for a spin. So back at the helm of this great Sea Ray Sundancer 320, and actually this helm station I personally think is a great helm station, especially because of these two displays. Sea Ray calls this a digital dash with its nice flat surface, two really big 12-inch and really bright displays. I really love those, not only because they're big and they have really good visibility, also in direct sunlight, which in many cases is quite a challenge in strong sun conditions, but also because you have all the info you'd need on these two displays. You can see all the info on the engines, on the boat, on the chart, on the depth, whatever you'd like to see. You can have it on these two displays. Also when you have radar, for example. So great information displays, I would say. This can be used in many different setups. You can adapt it in any way you'd like, so that, for an example, like I have now on the right screen, I have all the engine data. On the left screen I have the maps, the chart. But you could even have one screen split up, for example, showing the map on the left side and the depth on the right side. You have pop-up sections like this, where you can have, for example, all the engine data or the most important engine data, even while you have a map displayed. So many different possibilities. When I deliver a boat to a customer, I always send them a link There's a guy from Simrad doing what is called a deep dive on these Simrad displays because there are so many possibilities. This video done by this guy from Simrad split up in 2 videos, a part 1 and a part 2, and I think one is over an hour. So imagine how much info he is giving you, and of course you won't need all of it, but that is very useful getting to know these 2 displays. Furthermore, this dash of course has the Sea Ray buttons made of stainless steel with lights in them, and the blue light showing that they're on, which is very convenient. I think I mentioned this before, but the steering wheel which you can tilt. Here are the controls for the bow thruster. So different switches, diffusion stereo, cup holders, 12 volt and USB sockets here. This is the info display for the fire extinguishing system, which is automatic and standard on all Sea Rays. And of course the controls here. It's a digital digital throttle and shift system, which means that there are no cables going from the engine to the controls, making it even less noisy, more quiet than Sea Ray already is. And also shifting the gears is very smooth and no rattling, so a very nice system. And not only that, we also have the JPO, the joystick system. You can see a green light here now, meaning that the system is active. If I were to drive like this, you see the light going off. Good thing is that if I press this button, the autopilot comes on, which I like on many different boats, because I drive by myself or just 2 people quite often, and then you have your hands to do other things, like get a cup of coffee, for example. Taking it back from autopilot, another nice feature is the skyhook system, which works basically as an electronic anchor. So if I press that, you immediately notice that the boat is stopping. I'm confirming that I want to use this skyhook system. And now the boat is keeping itself on the position that you're at. You may notice that the engines are shifting, turning. It's just to keep the boat on exactly the place where it's at, which can be really convenient when you come to a bridge, you need to do something, or you need to wait for a lock or whatever. A very convenient system. But of course I'm taking it back now, so now you see the green circle again. You can also use it to drive in joystick mode. So pressing it forward means the boat is going forward. The more I press it, you may hear the engines revving. The more I press it, the faster it goes. Of course, the other way around, going backwards, like this. And if I now turn this knob, like this, you'll notice that the boat is also turning, which is just very intuitive. Even, let me just take her to a neutral position, even turning the boat 360 degrees by just keeping this straight and turning the knob means that one engine is going forward, the other is going to reverse, and it's turning 360 degrees. And the movement that most people are really enthusiastic about is the sidewards movement, which is something that makes driving even more intuitive. So if you want to dock sideways without using the bow thruster, this is just a movement of the 2 stern drives. See how it goes. It's going sideways like this, just with the press of this joystick. A fantastic system. It's not cheap, but it's something that most people buying a Sundancer 320 want. As a matter of fact, I don't think we've sold one without this JPO system. So a great system, again, very intuitive. Let me put on the safety cord, because of course, confirming that I'm taking the controls back. I'm sure you'd like to see how she planes and how she maneuvers on speed. There's another thing that I did not explain, and that is these controls here. They are for the what Sea Ray calls the dynamic running surface. This controls the two trim tabs, which are relatively big on this Sundancer. Not only that, the boat has been designed specifically to fit this system and to make the most efficient use of it. And what this system does is control the trim tabs automatically. So depending on how you'd like the boat to plane and to level, you can set this up with user preferences. So that there's one which is the most used function, and that is the auto mode, keeping the boat level, both like this and so in both ways. But there are also possibilities, for example, where you'd have the boat going in an angle like this on purpose, because maybe there's a wakeboarder behind it, and they usually want the steepest, highest wave, which you can create by using this dynamic running surface system. We haven't set it up yet, but it's a great system, and if you're interested, come over for a test drive and we'll show you. This boat also has the active trim functionality, where the stern drives are trimmed automatically. I am so used to this system that I hardly worry anymore on Sea Rays and other boats having this system about trimming the engines, because you just can't win. It's such a good system, and it makes boating life even more easy because there's one thing less to worry about or to be busy with. Let me take the helm, the steering wheel down a bit. You may notice that there's a footrest here, which for me is very convenient, but you could also put your feet here standing. There's a small cutout here, I would say, for your feet if you need the space. But I always notice that the ergonomics on any Sea Rays are really good, even for taller people like me. Okay, doing around 1000 RPM. The engines are heated up in the meantime. I can tell you all about fuel economy, etc. But I'd suggest, if you're really interested in the details, let us know or let your dealer know, and I'm sure they'll be able to give you the details. We're used to expressing the fuel economy in kilometers per liter, but I know that in different countries people use it in different ways. But again, we have all the data which we would gladly provide to you. We're doing around 12 kilometers an hour, which here in some parts of the lake is the maximum allowed speed, which is quite a good speed. You may notice that the engine noise level is really acceptable. It's nice cruising mode and a perfect day for that. But of course we'll be taking her up to plane, so let me do that. Let me see if there's somebody around in the area. I'm going to the open waters a bit. So here we go. I'm doing it gently because of the cameraman mainly. But the really good thing with this boat being equipped with the twin diesel setup is that the torque of diesel engines is really good, pushing this relatively heavy boat up to plane really fast. So again, whereas I'm doing this quite gently, if you really press the throttle, she'll more or less jump out of the water. We're already doing 50 kilometers an hour, around 3,200, 3,300 RPM, cruising really comfortably. I might switch on the autopilot like this and cruise over the IJsselmeer or the North Sea and travel relatively far distances. Really comfortable cruising. But doing some turns also. It's quite a big boat, 32 foot. Actually, it's a bit over 32 feet. But still, she handles really beautifully. Short turns like this. The other way. No problem whatsoever. Really tight turns. going back. So let me see what she can do. 55 kilometers per hour, 60 against the wind. You may hear the wind blowing. 65, 66, close to stop speed. 66, 67 kilometers per hour. I'm sure if we would have really flat water or the wind from the back, we could get a bit more. But it is for a 32-foot boat, a fast boat with a really good top speed, but a really comfortable and really nice cruising speed of probably around 45 kilometers per hour, which is what I'm doing at this moment, approximately. So, let me take the speed down. There's one thing that a lot of people ask me when I explain about this JPO, the joystick system, and that is if you would still need a bow thruster. To be honest, I personally think that it isn't necessary, but I would still always recommend it, especially in small areas, small waterways, of which we have a lot in the Netherlands. Going into a lock where you have really tight spaces, you have a boat in front of you, you have a boat only 30 centimeters behind you. It can be really useful to just use the joystick and get the bow towards the side to attach the mooring line, whereas if you'd use this joystick, it's maybe still possible, but you need both engines and you need a bit of room for her to move around. It's a great system. I would always buy this on a boat like this, but still I would also invest in the bow thruster, which by the way is relatively cheap also if you have it installed from the factory, because of course the boat is built with the hull and the superstructure apart, so it's really efficient to fit the bow thruster while you're building a new boat, whereas if you want to fit one afterwards, it's a lot less easy, thus a lot more expensive. So I'd always recommend the bow thruster. Talking about building the boat, this boat, being a European built Sea Ray, has been built in Poland, which Sea Ray has been doing now for I think 20 years or so. And we and also our mechanics always appreciate the build quality. Of course, boats built in the US are really nice, but they are basically the same. The build quality with boats coming from Poland is really good. And we sometimes even have mechanics who don't recognize if a boat has come from the US or from Poland. So we're still really happy with Sea Ray building in Poland, especially because there are some advantages to it, like a lot lower transport costs. We're less dependent on the dollar rate, and of course the labor rate in some countries can be more interesting than in other countries. And there's a lot of craftsmanship in Poland. I know that many car manufacturers are also building cars in Poland. So again, we're really pleased that Sea Ray is doing this. Well, I hope I've shown you enough of this Sea Ray Sundancer 320. If not, if you still have questions, please leave them below this video in the remarks. But thank you for watching. Keep on following us. Thumbs up, like, follow us, and I hope to see you in our next videos. Happy boating!